Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about making laptop hammocks. Basically this is a way to be able to still use a laptop as your primary computer along with an external monitor, but not have the computer on your desk. My desk is really small and it's in front of a window, and I decided that I wanted to be able to see out the window instead of having my giant, it's not so giant, not bragging, my 23-inch monitor blocking my view. So I wanted to move it off to the side and get my computer off my desk. So I made up this sort of way to take some fabric and make a thing that will hold my computer, and the ports are still accessible and it's fairly secure, so I could still use it as my work computer. Mine hangs right off the end of my desk, but I realized that you can also hang it on the inside of your desk where your legs go. You have to be careful about your legs knocking it against it, which is not safe. It's bad for your computer. You'll ruin the hard drive and probably everything, and your life will be a mess. If you, like me, don't want your laptop on your desk anymore, here are some instructions to make a laptop hammock. There are two versions of the laptop hammock that I've broken it down into. For the first, the dirty hipster no-sew version, you just need a t-shirt that you would rather dye than continue to own. Ideally, you'll be cutting it to size without having to sew either side of it, which I'll show you how you figure that out. If you're not making the dirty hipster version, you need some fabric, about half a yard if you go to a craft store. You need needles and thread. There's some thread dangling off of this. Some pins, some scissors. For both versions, you'll need a wooden dowel. They sell these 3 feet long, 1/4 inch wide at craft stores for like 65 cents. A knife or a saw to cut the dowel to size. And we're going to use shoelaces to hang the hammock. It's just easier to use shoelaces than rope or string because they're strong, they don't stretch too much, and they have a pretty nice finished look to them.
First, take the fabric, fold it in half, and lie it out as flat as you can. Then take your computer and align it so that it overhangs the fabric by a couple inches on both sides. Once we have it right where we want it, we're going to take a pencil and mark the fabric a couple inches from the other end. We fold it up and see where we want it to stop on the other side. We want it to about line up with the first side we measured. And we're going to turn it over and transfer our mark, and then just draw out the lines as straight as we can. And then we trim along them. And now we have one long piece of fabric we have to sew together. Now take the two edges of the fabric that you cut and pin them together. Once they're pinned, we can just start sewing along the pins. Just a simple in and out stitch works fine. There's probably a technical term for this, but I have no idea what it is. Now trim off the excess thread, and you can turn this sheet inside out, and you have one continuous loop.
Now if you want a laptop hammock without having to do any sewing, you can make what I call the dirty hipster version of this. You have to find a t-shirt or a tank top that's just the right size, that it comes about 3/4 of the way up the sides of your laptop, and then all you have to do is cut off the bottom, and then you will have your loop of fabric without having to sew anything. All you need is your scissors. You could argue that because both versions use shoelaces, every laptop hammock is the dirty hipster version.
To make the dirty hipster version, take a t-shirt you're ashamed of and lie it out flat, and do the same kind of measurements we did with the piece of fabric. If you size it correctly, you shouldn't have to do any sewing, just cutting. If you don't have any t-shirts you're ashamed of, just go to a pub trivia night and start answering questions correctly. You'll get one soon enough. Now it's time to measure out the dowels. You should have those overhang the edges of the fabric by a couple inches because we're going to be tying the shoelaces to them. Once we figure out where we want to cut them, we take some kind of moderately dangerous kitchen knife and slice the pieces apart. If you have a saw, that would probably be safer, as would shutting them in a car door or having a train run over them. Now use the first piece to measure out the second piece and cut that one too. Once we have our two dowel pieces, we're going to take our shoelaces and tie them along the length of the dowels with one single knot at each end. Then we take the dowels and stick them through the loop of fabric along with the other half of the shoelace. Tie the shoelaces together and you have a hammock. To To hang the thing, you might want to start with the shoelaces untied so you can figure out the correct height. Once you have it, tie the ends together, and then you can hang the other end. Once that's tied, you have to do a little bit of adjusting to get the sides even, and then very carefully slide your computer in. And you are now ready to enjoy your new hammock.